This is BJJhood, tapping into Jiu-Jitsu lives on and off the mats.
Hello. We are back. This is the BJJhood podcast. I'm Babby, your host.
And Shay, your co-host.
We're here to share inspirational stories about women in Jiu-Jitsu and how the martial art changed their lives. Today with us, we have Jasmine Rocha. She's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu and a competitor. If you know Jiu-Jitsu, you probably have at least heard about her at least once. Jasmine has a great record, 49 fights, 36 wins. From those fights were submissions. She's predominantly on the no-gi Jiu-Jitsu road set right now, where she conquered important medals in the IBJJF and the ADCC. Recently, she just punched her ticket to ADCC Worlds. So we're going to talk a little bit about the preparation for that competition and the preparation that led her to that medal too. She is part of the Rolling with the Rochas, as a well-established family in American Jiu-Jitsu. Jasmine under Wagner Rocha and fights out of VRMA Jiu-Jitsu Academy based in Florida. Jasmine, welcome to the BJJhood podcast. We're really happy to have you here today.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. Really happy to be here and tell my story a little bit and have a good time.
Of course. We like to ask always, like, how did you start in Jiu-Jitsu? We know you are the daughter of Wagner Rocha and Jiu-Jitsu runs in your family probably since you were born, but tell us a little bit, how was that beginning for you?
Yeah, no. So I started jiu-jitsu really young, as one might imagine. I started around like 4 or 5 years old. I wasn't really a big fan of jiu-jitsu, honestly, when I started it. It was just something that my dad always made me do. It was like, this is going to be an important part of your life, as a lifestyle, just to have jiu-jitsu in my life, for discipline and self-defense and all the other important things that comes with martial arts. It wasn't really necessarily about, making this my life or being a competitor. That was never really a requirement for him. He never told me like, hey, you had to compete or hey, you had to be the best. He just always told me I just had to show up for class and that was it. And over the years of just doing that, time and time again, I began to fall in love with the sport, and then I started competing, and I realized, I really love jiu-jitsu, and this was my passion.
Do you think there was like a specific thing that made you switch that, like have that click and that becoming like your passion and trying to do more competitions and getting to more on that world?
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember when I was around like 12 or 13, growing up, always training with the boys. There weren't that many girls I had as training partners. I used to always get beat up by these boys, like always growing up. And then we had like an in-house tournament at our gym that my dad ran. So it was like a miniature tournament just to stimulate competition for us. And it was versus all the same kids that I trained with every single day. And I remember my dad was like, there was a company, Fuji, sent me a gi. It was like the first gi I ever got from like a sponsor or something. It was a pink gi. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is awesome. And I did this in-house tournament with all these boys who used to just like whoop me all the time. And I submitted them all and I won the tournament. I remember I was like, Dad, like, I'm good at this. Like, I could do this. And I remember like really liking it and like that being like a forever pinpoint memory to us of like, when things finally switched for me. And ever since then, I just kind of like put my foot on the gas and was like, I'm gonna be good at this. Like I want to be the best. And ever since then, it's just been up.
That's
Never
awesome.
get a pinky. You don't do the pinky competition.
Yo, for real, I'm gonna have to tell Tommy to send me a pinky. Like, catch me showing up in a gi randomly.
That would be amazing. I think nobody would expect that.
Not even me, to be honest.
That's awesome. I wanted to touch a little bit on because I listened to some of your other podcasts and you reiterated just now how it didn't click for a really long time, and you were doing jiu-jitsu all growing up. And I've said this on the podcast multiple times with my son. Well, even my daughter now, she's kind of starting to do it. But I think like anything I have them do consistently, they don't want to do it, right? And so my son does motocross and he does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like he wasn't into because I was the only one doing it at the time because my husband took a hiatus for a little bit. And so I let him take a break, for a year. And then his best friend started doing it. And he was like, I want to do Jiu-Jitsu now. And I'm like, now you want to do it? but it's still like a struggle for me to get him to want to do it, and I have kind of had the same philosophy of like, hey, this is going to show you discipline and you need it for self-defense, especially in this world today. So you will be going twice a week, and there's no questions about it. You're not going to get out of it unless you're sick. And I kind of feel bad, putting that out there for both of them because my daughter is like very foo-foo. But I don't know, for somebody that went through that maybe had that same type of, upbringing, like how do you feel about it now as an adult,
Yeah, I
having that
think that
standard in your
mindset
house?
is really important, to be honest. Like, to be like, hey, like, you have to do it. Because I think jujitsu is not just like about jiu-jitsu and being good at jiu-jitsu. I think it's more so like a lifestyle. I learned so much from jiu-jitsu outside of moves and techniques and things like that. It's a mental battle every day with jiu-jitsu, physical battle as well. And I think it's just really important for the kids to realize, like, hey, this is like school. You might not like school. You don't have to get straight A's. You don't have to be an honor roll student. You don't have to be the best kid. But you have to go to school. Like, there's no option when it comes to
Yeah.
school. And I think jiu-jitsu is the same, as long as you don't put any expectation on your kid, that's it. If you're bringing them to class and you're watching them, you're like, hey, little Timmy, like, you didn't get any subs today, or you got beat up. Like, obviously it's going to deter the kid from wanting to do it. But as long as you're bringing them and they're there and they're learning and they're having fun, that's all that matters. It's all about just trying to have fun and making them love jiu-jitsu. As soon as they can love jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
like, it's going to be easy. One thing that you said that I paid attention to was that you said you gave him like a 1 year hiatus. Man, those are so hard to come back from. Once you take like
It's
that
been hard.
break, once you take that break and they think that they can have that break, they're gonna want to do it again. So it's really hard to
Yeah.
to keep them consistent. But the goal is to teach them like life is all about consistency. Like, not even just with jiu-jitsu, but
Yeah.
just like life. If you're inconsistent with daily habits and routines in life, then it's going to be really hard for you. So I think that's another thing that jiu-jitsu teaches. So I mean, yeah, I think you're doing great. There's plenty of people out there who are world class competitors that their own kids don't even like train or do jiu-jitsu because they're like, oh, they don't like it. I'm like, they probably don't like it because there's that added pressure. There shouldn't be any pressure or expectations when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and I was going to say also, I don't think it's just for kids when you talk about the hiatus of like a whole year out of jiu-jitsu. It's like even for adults, if we
It's
take
hard.
a break of a few weeks, it's so hard to come back. And it's like the consistency and like making yourself go even when you don't want to. Because I don't have kids, but that's what I tell the kids at my gym. It's like sometimes I don't want to come either, but I just do it because I'm an adult and it's like a responsibility and I just come. And at the end of the day, it's good. I'm glad I came. And I always like, these are the days that I learn the most when I don't want to go and when I'm not feeling like it. So being consistent and doing things that sometimes you don't like or you don't want to do it, that's what's going to make you achieve those bigger goals in life. And it might not be in jiu-jitsu because you might not be a competitor or an athlete or an elite athlete. But if you keep yourself like, I'm going to do this, I don't want, but I'm going to do it, you can take that for your life and maybe like at a job or at something else that you might not feel like you want to do it, but you just go because you have to. And that's when you're going to accomplish the good things, the best things on your life. So I think it's a great advice, not just for kids, not just for parents, but for us adults too, of like, sometimes you want to make your kids go and like, you have to go to class twice a week, but are you like working out twice a week at least? Like, are you setting the example in your house of like going and training at least twice a week? How are you going to tell your kid you can't eat this candy, but at the same time you are eating the candy in front of them? Like, you got to set the example too, right?
I agree.
So I think sometimes we as adults, we forget that too.
Yeah, I highly agree. That's just all mental discipline.
Yeah, that's just life in general, right? I did have you had said something also about it in your last podcast, like the consistency and whatnot, but it just finally clicked, and that you were continuously kind of getting beat up and you would lose, competition after competition. And that was just like a way of life, right? And it was a really good journey for you to have all those losses in the front end, you know what I mean? To be where you are right now is kind of what I took from it. Again, I'm like going to go back to my son, but he does motocross and that's like him and his dad. That's their life. It's kind of like a similar, comparison to you and your dad, right? And they're out, racing every single weekend. And but he definitely is getting in it's like a lull in the sense of like competing and like winning, and he was winning, and now he's just like kind of trying to get to the next step, you know. And so we struggle with it because, you know, he was super, you know, at the top, and now we're seeing all these kids like move past them. And for me, I think originally I was like, what do we need to do different to get him to the next step? But after hearing you to speak about it, and I wanted you to expand on it, maybe I'm like thinking maybe we just stay consistent. We just keep on doing what we're doing, regardless if he's winning or not. He's going to build the techniques, and eventually it's going to catch up, and eventually it's going to click. And I think I was losing hope a little bit, you know. But after hearing you, I was like, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I just like stay still and
Yeah,
just
exactly.
keep on driving forward.
Yeah, I always say just keep swimming. You know, just keep swimming. That's it. Just
Yeah.
keep. I always say that. I'm like, I just keep swimming. Like, you know, if I lose or something's happening, like, I just keep swimming. Like, just keep moving. You know, that's the goal. Is just to
Yeah.
consistently keep moving. And you probably felt that way because you had a little bit of expectation, right? So when there's a little bit of that expectation, when the expectation's not met, it's like, like, all right, like, why aren't we there? You know. But I feel like everybody's on their own path. You know, might have been winning more at the beginning, and now he's on a downward slope. But at the same time, it's all about a roller coaster. You know, what goes down must come up eventually. So it all adds up and it all catches up. But the second that you start letting that get like, oh, I'm not winning, you know, maybe I'm not good, I'm gonna take a break or I'm gonna stop, you know, as soon as you do that, you're already setting yourself back. You just have to keep consistent, and eventually all the puzzle pieces will click, you know, and that's it. That's what you're waiting for, is all those pieces to click, and eventually it's just gonna all work out. It's just a lot of hard, like, mental battle and all that. You know, it's not easy to lose and to keep swimming. It's not. Everyone thinks it's easy, but it's not. You know, to just go back and keep training, even though you're not seeing the results that you want, but eventually they'll come.
Yeah,
I wanted
such
to
good
kind
advice.
and I wanted to kind of link this with the ADCC, because you're like getting close and you would lose and then lose in finals, like, right? Like, you're so close every time, and then it's almost like you could touch it and then you
I know.
lost in the finals. Like, and then how do you come, like, in a huge event like that, where there's a lot of press, there is a lot of people talking, there is a lot of like tension, eyes and everything on you, like, how do you deal with that? Like, do you have a mental coach? Do you have a therapist? Like, how do you prepare? Because we're always going back on that. Like, is the mental that has to be good? Like, you do your work at the gym, but your mental has always to be back. Like, how how did you like came back and then I have to fight again and not feel like, oh my God, am I going to lose again? Like, on the finals, am I going to lose it? Like, how do you switch that into, no, I'm going to win, this is my ticket, like, I'm taking it home?
Yeah, no, definitely. So there's jiu-jitsu, everybody thinks it's just train jiu-jitsu, but there is so much behind jiu-jitsu, you know. There's physical trainers, nutritionists, mental coach, I have a therapist, I have everything you can think of, you know. So I definitely do have a mental coach that I work with. I started working with him, I think officially it's been like 2 years now. The first time I started working with him was back in 2022, right after I lost the Brazil trials. I had gotten fourth at the West Coast or the East Coast trials, then I got third at Brazil, and then I had lost a couple matches leading up to that Brazil trials, like matches that like I literally like had won but lost within like the last minute to 30 seconds of the match, just like folded. And it was clearly not something that I was doing jiu-jitsu wise. It was clearly some sort of mental battle I was having. And I remember my dad telling me like, hey, like, I think you need to like get your mind right. Like, I think you need to talk to somebody and like maybe seek some mental coaching or a therapist or something along that. And I was like, yeah, no, like, I agree. And then sure enough, like, coincidentally, in my request in my DMs was this guy trying to do a free call for mental coaching. And I was like, no way. Believe it or not. So I'm like, dude, give me the free call, right? So I did this free call with this guy on Zoom. He was out in London. And I was like, I love this guy. Sam the man with a plan. He is amazing. And I started working with him for a month before the trials in West Coast. And at this point, I was already like very like discouraged. You know, like I had worked so hard. I went to the Brazil trials and I was so close. And I was like, I lost a match that I had in the bag just off of my mistake, and he just helped me like figure out my mind a little bit. And what I really took away from everything that he's taught me over these years is like I had so much pressure on myself of having to win because I had this mindset of like I have to win this, I have to be ADCC, I have to win this trials to go. And if you think about the word have to, there's so much weight and bad connotation behind that like, you have a chore or something and you're like, oh, I have to go do this chore. There's already that like, oh, but if you change that have to, you take that word away and you change it to I want to, and you go, hey, I want to go do this. Like you have to go do the dishes. Oh, I have to go do the dishes. No, I want to go do the dishes. There's a completely different connotation there that just like, it's one word that changes the whole mindset. And it made me realize like, no, I don't have to do anything. Like, my life isn't going to change. Like if I lose this trials, but do I want that? Is that what I want? And I realized like, yeah, like that's what I want. And I started having that mentality of like, nobody wants it more than me. And then I went to the next trials. And I remember I had like 7 or 8 matches that day. And the whole bracket was just like tough. And I was like, man, how am I going to do this? And my coach was like, no, you got this. One match at a time. Just show them who wants it more. I was like, all right. And then I got to the finals. I lost to St. Marie. She went on to have an amazing run at Worlds. But I was like right there, And sometimes you lose, Even though I wanted to win, she was the better competitor that day and things happened. But it really showed me that like just one little thing in my mindset changed. And that was only like a month of working with him. So I already realized, like, you know what, like, this is all in my mind. Like, I'm having some mind battles. And then I continued working with him over the years. And then leading up to this last trials, me and him were talking. And I was like, man, it's like, I'm like right there. And he's like, you just got to pull the trigger. It was like, until you pull the trigger, like, nothing's going to happen. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I have to pull the trigger. And that's what I did. I pulled the trigger and I made it happen.
You pulled the trigger and you were having so much fun. Your little like peace sign
I
towards
was
the
having
camera.
fun.
I was like watching it. I was like, oh my goodness, I love her so much.
I was having way too much fun. I was so excited.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, when you talk about like him saying you have to pull the trigger, do you know, like, would you be able to tell why you were not able to do that on your matches before, like on the trials that you did before? Like, what was holding you from
Yeah,
doing that, like making
no,
it happen?
definitely. I feel like I was just a little hesitant, right? I definitely like I knew I had everything to win, but I was like very respectful and hesitant of my opponents was the problem. I wasn't like I was thinking like too much of what are they gonna do, and not so much of like what is Jasmine gonna do, and that was definitely the difference. So I just went out there and I imposed my will. That was it. There was nothing they could do that day to stop me from going there and doing what I came to do and getting my mission done. And that's what I did. Just like those little changes in your mindset, those things make the difference. I think jiu-jitsu is like 10% physical, 90% mental.
Yeah. There's something that
Yeah.
my therapist always tells me, and it's always funny to think about it because every time I bring something to her, I'm like, but what about if I don't, let's talk about competition, for example. Like, what if I go to ADCC Worlds and I don't win? And she's like, but what if you win? Like, are you scared of the win? What's going to happen if you win? Like, why don't you just think about that? Like, is it more scary to win than to lose? Like, try to understand why is your brain so scared of the win that you were always putting the lose in the first place, like that you're gonna lose, that you're gonna lose. What if I lose? What if I lose? What if you win? So it's all about of that like mindset change of like, instead of thinking of your opponent, think about yourself. Instead of thinking about like, oh my god, what if I lose again? No, what if I win? What if I put everything out there and I win? Like, what's gonna happen to me? And I think that helps a lot of like, nobody wants this more than me. Nobody wants gonna take this from me today. This is like, it's my chance, it's my day, I'm gonna win. And it for me at least, like I was kind of following the trials of ADCC and seeing that you were able to win and like get your ticket. That's amazing. It's like she's not giving up, like she's gonna go as many as she can, like do whatever she can, and she's gonna take it, and you did. So I'm really excited to watch you at Worlds, and that's something that I want to ask about. Like, how is the preparation for that? You have about like 100 days to fight. Like, did
Yeah.
anything change? I know you have some fights in between. Like, there's a lot that is still going on too. But do you change anything for a competition like that? Like, how does that work?
No, I truly don't really believe in camps. A lot of people do camps year round. I stay in a year round camp. You know, there's no off season for me. I stay very consistent. 'Cause that's it. You know, it's consistency. Every time I feel like people do a lot of camps and they train really really hard, and then they go compete, and then they take some time off, and then they come back. It's like, what if you stayed consistent that whole time? Think about how much better you would be. So not much changes in my training. Obviously, like certain days, I leading up to certain competitions, I'll change certain things. Like some days that I have more jiu-jitsu, I'm probably gonna incorporate more wrestling now that you know this ADCC style. But with my Who's Number One match, I've been changing a lot of my wrestling days to longer rounds because you know it's a 15-minute Who's Number One match. So it just really depends on what I'm doing. But my training doesn't lessen. You know, I don't train less or take time off or even add more training because that can hinder you as well if you're not getting enough rest or you're not getting enough recovery. So I try to stay consistent year round on the same training schedule, and that's always worked for me. Every time I take some time
How
off
does
or
it look
change it,
like?
it's hard. So Mondays through Friday, I usually train like 2 times a week, each day. Each day is like two training sessions. I lift about 3 to 4 times a week. Recovery is about 2 to 3 times a week. Wednesdays I usually take like a midweek hiatus. I'll do like just one training session. Saturdays are just focused on like competition training. Like I stimulate competition day on Saturdays. So every week's pretty gruesome, honestly, but I love it. It's fun. I really
Yeah.
love it. I study a lot. It's not just training. You know, a lot of people think that you have to do a lot on your body. Study a lot. Train my mind a lot. That's very very important. People don't. I feel like a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes just think it's just about like porrada. Like I'm gonna go do some porrada today. Like, no, bro, that's not it. Like porrada's not gonna save you every day.
Yeah.
You need to study. So I'm very big on that. You know, I think jiu-jitsu is a nerd sport. I don't care what anybody says. I think jiu-jitsu is a sport full of nerds who just get jacked. So I
Yeah.
think
No,
that's very
it's true.
important.
When you're studying, do you like to study other people that you like their game? Do you like to study your own fights and see where are your mistakes to try to correct it? Like, how does your studying look like for you?
Yeah, no, I do a little bit of everything. So it really depends. Like there are some days that like when I have harder competition trainings, I film all my training. So at the end of the trainings, me and my dad will go home, we'll watch my training, see what I did right, see what I did wrong, see what I need to add, and then I'll take notes, and then I'll go incorporate that into my later training, which are usually lighter days, so I'll practice that. And then on days that I'm not training as hard, I like to either sometimes watch my opponents if I'm fighting somebody, you know, like on a super fight or something like that. But I like to watch like other people who are doing things that I like, and seeing how they're doing it and what they're doing right. I don't really watch like too much on instructionals. Like they're great, right? But I feel like they're really hard for me to stay focused. Like I'll watch like here and there little snippets of certain details and things like that. But I definitely like to watch more like live rounds, like people going live and seeing how they did certain things and certain rule sets too. I like to watch a lot of ADCC matches because that's the focus right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talking about like you were talking about your weeks, like how hard they are, hard training all day, every day that you don't take breaks. Like, how do you try to do other things that you like too? Because I think when you're an athlete at the level that you are today, like you're working so hard, you're doing so much, it can be it's really stressful for not just your body but your mind. Like, what are the things that you do just for fun, like that are not related to jiu-jitsu, for example?
Man, that's a hard question, guys. Honestly, I don't feel like I do too much that's not related to jujitsu. And I don't think that's a bad thing either. Like, I love jiu-jitsu, so like I'm not complaining. You know, I love to do this all day and every day. Um, you know, competing a lot. We travel a lot, so we see a lot of different places. So I definitely think that's cool. I like to travel. Um, so that's fire. But outside of jiu-jitsu, honestly, by the time the week is done and I have my Sundays off, I'm just like I just want to rest. So
It's like just do nothing. Just lay on the couch and do nothing.
yeah, I play some Fortnite or something, and that's about it.
Well, there you go, Fortnite. There you go. I was like, is it Netflix or video games? Which one is
There we
it?
go. Yeah, video games. Video games. Netflix is great, but video games. Netflix is more for like flights.
Are you as
Yeah.
good as in Fortnite as you are in jiu-jitsu?
No, not at all. I'm terrible. Me and my brother play together a lot, and he's so good at it, and I'm like so terrible. And he's always like, "Yo, we should like do like a streaming, like a Twitch streaming, because like I'm good at like
You
talking while
should.
playing, and he's good at playing."
You guys should definitely do it. I play with my
Yeah, I
husband
think
and like his
we'll
brother.
get the younger
I'm
viewers.
Brazilian, so like yeah, our family's in Brazil, and I always play, but we play Call of Duty. Like so, we do on the computer or on like the video game. We're always playing on the weekends, and it's one of the funniest moments for me. It's like when we have that time. It's tiring too. Some people think like playing a game like that where you're like shooting people, it's easy, but it's not. It's super tiring. When I end, I'm like, I need like 30 minutes to just decompress for all that like fighting. It's like I'm physically
Virtual
tired.
stress.
Yeah.
It is so
It's
stressful.
like super
I
stressed
saw
and tired from that.
I saw a study online that says like it is more stressful to play video games than it is to like work out. Like your heart rate gets higher and things like that. I was like, you know what? I highly believe this because I am sweating, and it gets so frustrating.
Oh, yeah, like at my house, I'm really sore for my neighbors because I yell so much in here that sometimes my husband's like, "Can you just shut up? Like the windows are open. Like they are gonna come here and they're gonna complain with us. Like you can't do that. Like that's not cool." Hi, Baby here, interrupting my own podcast just to ask you for a favor. If you are liking this episode, make sure you hit that like button and the follow if you don't follow us yet. We are on your favorite podcast platforms, and we're also on YouTube with subtitles in Portuguese, so you can see our faces there. If at the end of this episode you think a friend might learn something from us today too, make sure you hit that share button. That's really, really important for us to keep getting to more people and to start bringing more people here to the podcast. If you don't follow us on social media yet, we are on Instagram and TikTok as BJJhood Podcast. So make sure you're following us there, leaving comments and suggestions for us. For ADCC, like Worlds, what do you think there are going to be like your biggest challenges there? Like, what are you expecting from that tournament?
Like, who am I gonna fight?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are so many tough people in this division. I don't think people like really realize like the minus 55 kilo division is about to be a banger. Like every first round fight is gonna be like who's number one super fight, if that. I definitely think that I have a couple rematches in there, some receipts I gotta collect. that Yeah, I got a couple in there. I know everybody wants to see the me and Fion rematch. I know I want to see that one. Um, I definitely would love to get a rematch with Maisa as well. I fought her at the Brazil trials a couple years ago. But I definitely think there's some new faces in there I haven't faced that I would love to. Honestly, like top of my list, like number one person I really would love to fight is Mackenzie Dern. I am such a Mackenzie fan. Since I was like young, like I remember watching Mackenzie growing up and thinking like I want to be like her. So I definitely think that that's more like a starstruck kind of idol moment right there. So that would definitely be like, you know, Mo, give it to me first round. I want it no matter what. So that's a match I would love. I think everybody would love that as well. She's tough. She's gritty. I'm tough. I'm gritty, and I think that'll be a firefight.
You are so gritty. I was like looking at your fights, and I was like, holy. I was like, wow, she's so aggressive. I mean, I love it. Like not at all the aggressive that you demonstrated your fights, but like just at the jiu-jitsu gym that we're at, like I'm known as being aggressive. So I loved like watching you because I think a lot of people aren't, right? And it kind of like shocks them a little bit. So yeah, I was getting inspired when I was watching your fights. I was like, oh my God, she did not just full on kick her, like totally take her like mouth and just like, you know,
Thank you.
put it over her face.
Yeah.
And be like, this bitch, get off me.
Yeah.
You're talking about like facing Mackenzie on the first round, for example. When you have all those names in the bracket, it's a heavy bracket with like so many good people in there. Would you rather go through some of these people and the first round? Would you rather like have some other people maybe and then face them a little later? Like how do you think that would be like the best scenario for you?
I mean, it doesn't matter, you know. I'm there to be the best. So if they give me Fionn first round, give me Fionn first round. You know, if they want to give me Mackenzie first round, you know, it doesn't really matter to me who I get first round or in the finals. It doesn't make a difference to me, to be honest, because I'm there to be the champ. I'm there to fight them all, you know. So that's all that matters, you know, is that I just go out there and I just impose my will on them, and that's it, you know. So whoever they give me first or last or in the middle, it doesn't matter. But you know, I would like first round, you know, to get Mackenzie because I think that she'd be a firefight. I think that I just want that fight no matter what. So if it doesn't happen at ADCC, that's a super fight potential.
I love that.
How being like so young and going with these like more seasoned people, like how does that like affect your psyche? Like obviously how you're talking right now, it seems like it doesn't affect you like whatsoever. But I had imagine like as you're saying like starstruck, like how do you walk through that of like not having it kind of stifle you?
I think the starstruck, you know, I'm starstruck of her as an athlete. You know, I think she's an amazing athlete. And I think
Yeah.
the best way to get a respect from another athlete is to whoop some ass. So you know, being young, it's cool. You know, I have some years to catch up to these people or to even surpass them. So I think that I have that in my advantage. But I don't think that takes away from me either, because even though I'm young, I still have so many years of experience. You know,
Oh yeah.
I've been training since I was little, and I don't think it really matters. You know, I think maybe some of them got their big girl strength already, but that's about it. You know, so it doesn't really play a difference to me.
I
like
saw
that.
your legs, man. You got some big girl strength in I wouldn't say that you don't.
Jasmine, you have so much confidence, not just in your fights, the way that you talk. We're even talking about it before you came back in, and your interviews. I think like jiu-jitsu is changing a little bit and adding all of that to the pre-interview, especially all the talking. I think that helps to build a fire for the fights that you go, right? Like, when did you start developing that? Like, is that something that's always been a part of you, or you saw that was an opportunity to market your fights too in that way?
So honestly, like, this is all just personality. You know, I'm just like this naturally. Like, if you ask anybody in the gym, like, everybody know I'm like the biggest shit talker. I talk shit while training with everybody. Like, I could be like in bottom mount and I'll be like, you're not tapping me. Like, like, you know, like, I'm that person in the gym. I just like grew up like that because my dad's like that. You know, he's always talk shit to me growing up. Always talk shit to my brother growing up. So it was always a very like family that we were always just like messing with each other, you know. We're real Brazilian, so we talk a lot of shit and we play a lot of games. So I grew up like that, you know, like in a very competitive household, and it was normal. And then, you know, I started, you know, talking a lot more, you know, after fights or before fights, and then obviously my press conference with Fionn. Um, Before that, even my Amanda Bruce fight, I had a nice little interview after my match that everybody was like looking at me funny because I told Andre Galvon to remember my name.
I remember that one too.
And that's just all personality, you know. There's no disrespect from me. I'm super respectful. I talk to all my opponents before and after. We're all super chill. And after doing that, everyone just kind of made me like the villain of the sport, and I was like, you know what, like, this is marketing, like, whatever. Like, you guys can hate me, you guys can love me, but you guys are still showing up to watch me fight. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know, and there's nobody else really doing that in the sport. And there's a lot of girls who are shy to do that in the sport. I don't really know why. Like, we're in a sport where we're all cross-facing each other and trying to choke each other and break each other. Like, why not talk a little shit, you know?
Like you said, as long as you're respectful to your opponents, like the shit talking makes the marketing for your fight. So
Yeah.
that helps. It makes you guys make more money because more people are going to invite you to fight more. It gets exciting to watch. Like, I want to watch you against, I don't know, Fion again, because I want to see the fire going. Like, that's what we expect from a fight. So.
Yeah, exactly. I always say this, and people, a lot of competitors don't really get it. Like, closed mouths don't get fed, right? It's that simple. There's a bunch of people asking for fights out there who are amazing athletes, amazing jiu-jitsu, right? And there's so many people out there with amazing jiu-jitsu, but what makes you stand out? How are you bringing eyes to these promotions? How are you marketing? How are you doing your job? Because your job isn't to just do jiu-jitsu. If everybody's job was just to do jiu-jitsu, everyone would be on Who's Number One every couple of months. That's not the case, you know? There's, 2 girls fights on every Who's Number One event? I've been on, like, the last 3. Like, it speaks volumes. Like, my job when I sign a contract like that is not just to win and to put on a show. My job is to bring eyes, and eyes brings money, and that helps grow the sport. And a lot of people don't really realize that. So I think that the people who do realize that, you can have mediocre jiu-jitsu and know how to talk a good game, and you'll probably get more than you will for somebody who has good jiu-jitsu and doesn't know how to say anything on the mic. They get the mic and they're like, thank you to my mom, thank you to my dad, and thank you to this coach, and thank you to the cousin that I met 2 years ago. I'm like, what are you saying, bro?
It makes total sense. You were talking about the Who's Number One, and you were fighting Emily. This episode's going to come out on the 9th. We're recording end of April, but it's one day before your match with her. What are your expectations? Have you fought her before? Like, what are you bringing to that show?
No, I've never fought Emily. Crazy enough, me and Emily have, like, grown up in the rankings together. I've always seen Emily. Like, I've seen Emily since, like, orange or green belt days as a kid, and, like, always right there to fight each other. But it just never happened. I don't even know how. And it's kind of cool that now we grew up in these rankings, seeing each other, and now we're going to fight each other on one of the biggest stages in the world at black belt. So I definitely think that's exciting. But I don't think Emily has enough to deal with me. I don't think she has enough enough tools to deal with Jasmine. So we'll see. But I definitely think it's gonna be a good fight. It's gonna be a banger. Everybody should go watch it. It's gonna be another Jasmine Rocha victory, though.
I love that, Jasmine. If you had to pick someone that it's not on the ADCC card until now, like for example Mackenzie that you talked about, for a super fight maybe, who would you pick today to fight you that you think would give you like a really good fight?
That's not in the ADCC.
Is there any names like maybe that you might not face there? They could be in there too, but I mean, you talked about Mackenzie already.
Mackenzie
so
would be
is
fine.
there anybody else?
I think I have Bianca Basilio like at the top of my list. That's a fight I haven't had. She's exciting. I love watching her. She's a firecracker, and I can match that energy. I think that's a fight everyone would love to watch.
There's a sign right there for Bianca Basilio versus Jasmine Rocha maybe soon. Maybe on the next Who's Number One. Who knows? They might put you out there. Huh?
Hey, it might happen. Who knows?
Who knows? So what are your plans? You were pretty young, like we were talking about. You're 22. You are accomplishing a lot in jiu-jitsu. What are your biggest goals in jiu-jitsu? Like what do you want to accomplish? And do you have any plans on moving to MMA after, or like what is your goal?
Yeah, so main goal is to probably just win ADCC as many times as I possibly can. I want to solidify the female GOAT. So that's definitely like my highest goal. All the other events are like cool, but ADCC is
How many times do you have to win ADCC to be a female GOAT? Like, what is that number?
5, 4, 5,
5?
5. Yeah.
All right.
I think 5. I think 5 is a good number.
5?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
And then after that, would you Would you think about switching into something else maybe?
I've definitely been getting the MMA itch, you know. I'm here right now in a hotel in Vegas, with one of the athletes that I train that fights in the UFC. So I've been training her. I've been her head jiu-jitsu coach for the past like year now. She's on like a 3-fight win streak with like 3 subs. So it's been real nice doing that, and it's kind of cool to see this lifestyle, this environment. I kind of like the idea of fighting. I'm a scrapper, and what better place to shit talk than in front of the world in the UFC?
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's some room for Jasmine Rocha in MMA. But I definitely don't want to rush anything because I'm really young and I have goals in jiu-jitsu, and that's my main focus. So once those goals are starting to be matched and kept, then I'll start moving on to the next thing. But I'm in no rush.
That's awesome. What you were talking about, like being there to be a coach. How's that other side for you? Because we see, I think, a lot more of you as an athlete, as a competitor. How is it to be on the other side and like being helping somebody, and especially on MMA?
Yeah, it's nerve wracking. It's much harder. I'd rather just fight. I'm like here with my athlete, and she's over here like weight cutting and like getting ready, and I'm just like more nervous for her than I am for me. So it's hard, but I definitely think like it helps me a lot to see like a coach's perspective. I see like my dad's perspective of things dealing with me sometimes, and it definitely helps me like have a different respect and a different view towards it. And I love it. I love being able to coach and to be able to help other people get to where they want to get and help them complete their dreams.
I'm 22. It's just amazing your like journey so far, and you have so much to go. Like I'm almost 40, right? And I just thinking at me at 22, it's just amazing what you've accomplished. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, but like really you at 40 years old, I'm looking at you and you are so inspirational. It's not even funny.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
I
So keep it
appreciate
up.
that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Jasmine, to finish, we like to ask everybody, what does BJJhood means to you?
Yeah, I love this. This was awesome. This was a great time. I love hanging out with you guys and talking to you. I had a great time, and tune in, watch this. Jiu-jitsu is awesome. Everybody has a different jiu-jitsu journey, and I think it's definitely cool to hear so many other different jiu-jitsu journeys. Everybody starts somewhere, everybody ends somewhere different, and everybody's got different mindsets. So I think that having a podcast like this helps other athletes or even hobbyists and other people to see into other people's lives. Like I always say this, like my dad only started jiu-jitsu at like 21 years old. I'm 22, and I'm already making a career, and he made a career. So it's never too old to start. There's just like so many different perspectives you could learn from maybe watching a podcast like this and just getting different insights. And there's always there's a will, there's a way, and this helps people see that path clearer.
That's awesome. I almost forgot. I have one more question and then we can finish. You and your dad are fighting together on who's number one. Is that the first time that it's happening on a super fight? And like how does that feel?
I feel like this is the first time on a super fight. Someone asked me this the other day. I really sat and thought about it, and I was like, I don't remember ever doing a super fight with my dad. Maybe a fight to win, but I don't think so. Let alone a super fight with me, my brother, and my dad on the card. So I definitely think that that's gonna be awesome. I think we're gonna have a great time. Go 3-0, call it a day. My dad's the main event versus Marigali, so he's gonna have a banger of a fight. My brother's in the prelims card or the undercard, so that's gonna be awesome too. So everyone should tune in May 10th to the Rocha show on Flow Grappling.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for taking your time talking to us, sharing a little bit more about your story and the background that maybe not everybody sees. That was a pleasure for us to talk to you today.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for you that is watching this episode, make sure you share with your friends, that you follow us on Instagram and your favorite podcast platform. We're on YouTube too with subtitles in Portuguese. We will see you next week on Thursday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Would you like to share your story? Email us at bjjhoodpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at BJJhood Podcast.